Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Let's get started. Till now, we have discussed about number of options and number of resources within Azure platform. We have discussed about governance data compute options. We have discussed about backup site recovery resources. Right. We have mentioned about lot of details over here. Now, actually, if you look at this part, once it comes to the real world scenarios, this is where your actual conversation will begin from. Once you have understood the customer's requirement, you know what are the stakeholders on customer side. You have identified some of the major critical workloads. You have already done segregation of those workloads. Then we will start looking at what needs to be created new from scratch. And what's something that we can migrate. If you look at the options for migration over here, that is where you will start with module number 12. As far as module 12 is concerned, it focuses on what are the options for migration. But before you start migration, you will have to look at some of the key aspects or key questions. You need to ask the customer and understand what is their mindset, what they are looking for. How are the developers? What are the IT team over there? How educated and what is their cloud alignment? Right. Some of these primary questions one needs to understand. Right. And we need to build conversation. The stakeholders. There are quite a few facts over here, quite a few rumors as well that IT people lose their jobs. Right? Because most of the things are automatically done on cloud. People, everybody from security team, compliance team will lose their job because cloud already has a lot of compliance certificates. People are by reading things and the way how cloud vendors have been marketing themselves. People are totally convinced that cloud is a magic. You don't have to do anything over there. People actually don't have any major tasks to perform. Once it comes to cloud-based workloads and a lot of other things, right? They may be major bottleneck for you when you're doing the migration piece. If you need their assistance, if you need their help, the only way there is to train them on what is cloud actually about. What is possible with cloud? What are the things that the vendor provides? What are things which you will have to do as a workload owner? What are the tasks that one needs to perform over here? This clarity has to be there. One primary thing that needs to be explained is cloud is a shared responsibility model. And when I say shared responsibility model, what do I mean by this is there has to be responsibilities taken up by the customer. There will be responsibilities taken care by the vendor. And when I say customer, obviously respective stakeholders on the customer side. Right. Now, once that clarity is there, once that basic training is being given, We'll have to cut out the marketing conversation and actually look at implementation scenarios. Right? That's when you get a bind from these stakeholders. And they will be your hands and legs on the shop floor to help you do the actual thing. Help you get the actual details and get you the right picture in terms of what is there, what is not there. Even if something has been done in the correct way, they have managed to hide it and managed to get it working for a very, very long time. Even those things will come up. But we will have to be with them and hold them and make sure we take them up with the journey. Right. Some of you all who have already been part of some prior cloud, that is AWS or Look, done some on-premises development work, right? You all would know what I'm talking about. Right. There are a lot of things on customer side because I'm not saying you have to help them doing something wrong, but I would say rather than escalating every small bit of it, some pieces will have to adjust and make sure it works smoothly. Right? Because unless you get their help, you will not be able to successful. You will not be successful in the cloud journey. That is for sure. Now that is how I have worked with respective teams on customer side. You have to build your repo with them, and then that's where how you proceed further. Now, before you start with cloud migration, there is a framework given by Microsoft which is called as Cloud Adoption Framework, which is called as CAF. This is something which is not part of the session or not part of the architecture. This is a separate architecture all about which is called as Cloud Adoption Framework. What I want to pick from this is how do you accelerate adoption? Now many a times when customer wants to go for migration of applications, migration of contents. This is what I was talking about. That is stakeholder alignment. Once this alignment is being done, now comes the next step, which is migration planning. Now, second thing over here, which I have understood. Once it comes to migration planning, there are plenty of organizations where the problem is not with IT team. IT team is well versed. Their developers have done a great job. They have created a multi-tiered application. Right. All those aspects are being taken care very smoothly. If things are working fine, then why move to cloud? But yes, they will have their own set of challenges in terms of scale challenges or spike challenges at times where their infrastructure was not able to scale to the required level. Development of POC using new environment. Aging out licenses that they have. Aging infrastructure that they have. Yes, there will be some of these challenges. You will have to identify those. Challenges. Why need to go to cloud? Now, while you are doing that, one of the major challenges again over here would be, should I really trust cloud? Something which I have been working from last 15 odd years or 20 odd years. Things have been working smooth for me. But yes, there has been some hiccups. 10-15% here and there. Right. But do I still move to cloud? Need to move to cloud? If yes, how do I trust cloud? Something which is entirely known, starting from the cables, the sockets, the network, how it is being configured. Everything I have done on with my hands, bare hands, And I know how these things are working. Now you are saying, start trusting a new environment where I don't have access to the physical aspects of it. Everything is virtualized. Most importantly, my data is being managed. My data is being stored into some other platform. It is owned by somebody else. Are you sure? That's the best way to go ahead with. There could be a lot of questions there. One part of the training, like I said earlier, is removing the magic aspect and showcasing what is the facts. That's first. Second aspect over here would be to help them with the migration plan. If you don't trust cloud, let's start with something which is non-critical. Say something which you have on your tape drives, right? Certain backups that you have. Push that onto cloud. Encrypt all the information that you have, right? That, and you hold the encryption key with you. Store it safely. Obviously, that is the must. Correct. And when you have to decrypt that information, you can go and connect to it and start working with it. Level 2, you can go for site recovery rather than having a physical site recovery mechanism. Why can't we have a cloud-based site recovery mechanism? Try for that, right? Now, what I'm trying to say is this small steps or basic steps that we have. This will help to build trust with the cloud environment. Right. Once that trust is there, now you can go ahead with some of the critical workloads 1 or 2. Start with your dev test machines here. Correct. Have a site-to-site connectivity. Make sure your developers are working with cloud-based VMs. But in case they want to connect to on-premises data, they should be able to do that. This is how you'll have to go for migration planning. And this will never happen. Based on my experience, I'm telling you, this will never happen that you get a customer who says, we are full gung-ho with cloud. Start migrating from day one itself. It doesn't happen that way. Because even they have to make sure they sustain their current business. If they deploy complete bandwidth for cloud migration, it will be a problem for them in sustaining their current environments. Right. They'll have to keep that in mind as well. As an architect, our responsibility is to make sure we have good knowledge of Azure. We need to have decent amount of knowledge about their on-premises environment, about their workloads, their challenges, pain points, what is the critical aspects of the customer. Based on that, we'll have to chart out a plan. And this will always be in terms of phases. First phase, what will be the workloads that you have identified? What will be the steps that you're going to perform? Similarly, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And based on my experience, I'm telling you this is never a short-term kind of implementation. And I'm not saying this is for large enterprises, even for small enterprises or mid-site. When I say small, I'm not saying startups. When I say small, I'm saying they already have their own premises environment set up. I consider start small from that perspective. These kind of users, they will have to. Even for them, I'm saying you'll have to have phase-wise migration plan. And this is a long-term perspective that you'll have to look at. Like Chinna was mentioning about, from a business perspective, for these kind of scenarios, If you have not chalked out a business plan for yourself, that will become a big problem. And that's what I'm saying. You'll have to look at from a customer's business perspective and your business as well. This is a long-term investment. And even the money which flows over here will be phase by phase. You'll have to specify that very clearly, saying that once you achieve these goals, this is a payment which I expect from you. This will be the ROI that I will help you with. These finance terms have to be very clear with the customer as well. Once that part is being done, that will be key aspects of your migration planning. I'm not sure if you'll have been through this. I'll share you these links. You all can go through this. This is one of the good things which I found on. This is one of the lot of other good things which I found on Microsoft Azure documentation. Is about assessments. You can create a complete questionnaire with you. What to ask? What are the right questions to ask over here? Specifically from developers' perspective, governance perspective. If you don't have this questionnaire ready, you can take a help from here. Please don't get me wrong. This is not the only question that you can ask. Right? There are many more questions that you can add over here. If something which you feel is not relevant, you can remove those questions. No problem with that. Can I have the link of it? I already shared. It's on the chat window. Thanks. Strategic Migration Assessment. This is the fourth one. Strategic Migration. Right. You can check for this. Has your business identified a compelling business reason? Right. You see each of these steps over here or each of the set of questions over here which will help you identify is the customer making a right decision or whatever are the expectations of the customer. Are they justifiable? Those things you can check with these 17 to 18 questions. Are they sufficient? I am again saying they are not sufficient. You need to add many more based on the underlying domain. But this can help you understand what is the kind of questions that one needs to ask as an architect. This is again, some part of it will be Microsoft marketing as well. You have to understand that some of these things are more generic in nature. You have to dig deeper, create more relevant questions for that. Right? Now, some of these aspects that you see will also be targeted towards different stakeholders. You should have different. If you see the categories over here like business strategy, you can't ask the business strategy question to somebody who is from an IT admin team. You have to ask CEOs only on that. Right. In terms of discovery and assessment, these questions you can't ask to CXOs. You have to ask these questions to IT administrators. Specific business cases you have to ask to business analysts. Which of these questions are targeted towards which stakeholders? Even that will play a very, very crucial role. I hope that part is making sense to everyone. This and many such other aspects are part of your 3 out of 4. Right. Let's move ahead. This is in terms of documentation and what are the options available there where you can look at these resources. Now, once you have got these details, that's when you go for the next step over here, which is migration. Now, once it comes to migration, now we are, by doing all this exercise, at least the first part is clear. Why customer is migrating? Is it something which is a doable aspect? It is something which there is an agreement between the migration service provider and the customer. That is between us and the customer. There are no unwanted expectation or unrealistic expectation setting. That part is being clarified. Now, once that part is clarified, then you go to the next step here, that what needs to be migrated in that particular phase and how to do that. Why part is clear. Now comes to what and how. When you are doing that, you will come across a scenario where you have two members over here. That is server migration and next is database migration or data migration. Once it comes to your resources over here, you need to identify which of these resources need to be migrated. Data migration. I don't see any other option there. Option in sense, if there is a data within a database or data within NoSQL members or file shares that has to be migrated. There is no option there. Vis-a-vis, if you look at server migration generally, Subhash, as an individual, what I would want to do is, when I say server, it is 127 GB disk which I am talking about, along with that respective data disks that I have. What is the size of that? What I would first want to do is, I would first want to understand, is it essential to migrate everything, or can I have a workaround where I just migrate the application content, right? And avoid server migration. If it is a web application or a specific application server, I have many templates available on Azure. I can go to Marketplace if need be, that it minimizes my effort in migrating the entire server. I hope you'll agree with me. Yes, you're all good. Instead of migrating 127 GB, if I can migrate 20 GB or 30 GB of the application content and I have readily available VM with me, that solves my problem. But still, if there is a scenario where I feel that no, it's not working that way, there is no template which is anywhere closely matching to what my environment is. There's some custom environment, something which I have done special, which nobody else has done, or the versions which I'm using are pretty older versions. Those versions don't exist in the marketplace, which is a possibility. In these scenarios, the only option I see is server migrate, which is migration of virtual machines. In terms of virtual machine migration, I can migrate from any of the existing environments. I'm not saying VMware and hypervisor are the only two virtualization strategies. When it comes to on-premises, there will be many more of them. Right? There could be VirtualBox at times. There could be Cisco-based VMs on times. There will be lot of other formats. What, as part of this course, we had to focus on one or two members, which are most commonly used. The most commonly used members that we have is VMware, vSphere, vCloud, right? These are the options available. Second one that we have is hypervisor, which is Microsoft technology. These are two basic aspects that we'll see as part of this module. Along with this, there are other members over here which can help you do the migration. You have agentless migration. You have agent-based migration. I'm not sure if you're aware about this. If you go to Azure Compute Options, you can see. If you go to Azure Compute Options here, there is an option for Azure VM. This one, Azure VMware Solution. You can migrate your VMware virtual machines over here, and you can also have dedicated cloud infrastructure for VMware on Azure. VMware also is not a big problem now. And this, I'm not sure if you are aware about this. This has been there for last 6 months. What do you mean now? Basically, I have seen that while migrating, we have got the VMware Azure Migrate, which helps to migrate the VMware vSphere, the servers, the databases, the apps, and the storage. What is this? What different is this? That's why I highlighted the sociality over here. When you do VM Migrate actually converts all your VMware images into hypervisor-based images. It will convert or translate everything using a tool to a hypervisor-based images, that is VHDX. When you are using Azure VMware solution, here what we are doing is, even when you are migrating, it's still a VMware solution. It's not a hypervisor solution, which means I can go to and fro, which means I can upload or I can migrate to Azure. Using that, I can migrate to Azure my VMware solution, and I can also get it back, which means it still remains the same native format of VMware. Oh, it's not. It doesn't convert to the image doesn't convert to the not Azure image, but like the local Linux or or Windows version. Got it. Whatever is a VMware native format, that format VDH, not VDX, correct. Yes, what got it? That's what I saw. That VDH is the latest version. Got it now. I got it. That is the advantage of using this solution. But still, that's not part of the course right now as part of 3.0, and it is telling you what is available, right? There are many organizations who would not want to convert their resources into hypervisor-based resources. They would want to still continue with the VMware format for whatever reasons. Whatever is the purpose they would want to serve with that, like how we have System Center. Similarly, you have something called as vSphere and vCloud, which means there is a complete data center. By using VMware solutions, for them, it will become easier too. For them, it will become easier if they migrate VMware to a VMware native solution, and that is the service which Microsoft is giving recently. The Hyper-V you are talking like, is it a Microsoft's VMware solution? Yes, it is. System Center Hypervisor or Hyper-V. If you see, this is Microsoft's solution. Again, please be careful. The cost of VMware on VMware Cloud on Azure, or VMware solution on Azure will be costlier. because that is something which they are offering as a separate solution. It's not within their existing solutions. Cost will be another factor there. Let's move ahead and let's look at what is there in this curriculum and what are the options available here. If you look at the something which I have already spoken about, that is assessment, migration optimization, and final security. We by now know what are the options available for other resources. Assessment is something which is talking to your stakeholders, understanding the workloads. Now, when you are migrating, you have to first check out what is there on their on-premises environment. Do they have VMware machines? Do they have hypervisor? If you are not that great in luck, you'll have your physical servers. Right. And I'm not referring to rack servers over here. I'm referring to high-end machines that they have. Physical servers which they want to migrate. Or they would have some of the devices like SAN storage, NAS storage, which they want, which your customers would want to migrate. Or there could be other virtual machines where the format itself is not supported. You'll have to translate or convert that into the Azure understandable format. In terms of VMware migration. Now, the reason why this module focuses majorly on VMware is, like I said earlier, there will be number of customers, or after hypervisor, if I say percentage wise, there are more than 40 to 40% approximately. Wherever people have virtualization, they have been going on to VMware. People who are from Microsoft background, around 80% of them, have gone to Hyper-V and they have been using System Center. Right. Totally depends upon what is the kind of environment that you're looking at. Lot of my observation, I'm telling you, lot of people who have been from open source background, Linux background, all of them have gone to VMware. All of them. They have gone to VMware. Secondly, VMware does not require a OS. I'm not sure if you're aware about that. You can directly install VMware on the hardware, which is not an option for Hyper-V. Hyper-V requires Windows OS. On top of Windows OS, you can install Hyper-V or you can install System Center. But for VMware, it does not matter. It just needs a physical machine. On that physical machine, you can have VMware directly being installed. And on top of VMware, now you start building. Now you start creating Linux machines, Windows machines as a virtual, as a VM, whatever you want. That's another reason why majority of them have gone to VMware. Now, what we're trying to do is, this morning I was working on, migrating from AWS to Azure. And I was working on migrating from VMware to Azure. I got stuck with, on-prem servers. Like now, I was able to deploy and do all the stuff. We are migrating. Is there an option that we can install a VMware? We steer on our Windows for a free version. Do you have that where I can create servers inside? Or you should be having a license. As far as V3 machines are concerned, V3 machines, it should allow you install VMware on your system, on your virtual machine, which is a Windows virtual machine. With a V4 version. I'm talking about my desktop. You mean on my desktop? No, on your desktop. No, I'm not referring to your desktop. I'm saying on Azure environments. You're saying I want. You want to install it on your machine. My goal is to practice that. Migrating VMware to, VMware to Azure. Deploying, that was my goal this morning. I'll check this up because I have not done this earlier. In my case, what I had done is I already have a rack server within my office. What I had done is I had installed VMware on that rack server physical machine. From there, I have done migration to Azure using SR. I was trying to practice ASR this morning. Like now I got stuck with how do I deploy and recognize a VM on Prime server. That's where I got stuck. I'll share a lab with you on that. You can work with that. But it is again not with VMware. It's with hypervisor. Doesn't matter. I can help you with that. Doesn't matter. But using SR. With S. That's fine. Even I get lot of customer requirements today saying that, can you help us with that? I said I have experience, but currently to this COVID situation, I can't go to office and set up all these things on my physical machine. The physical rack server. That's a challenge. But I have done this in past. But you don't have to go to a physical server, right? Supash, at this point of time you can connect and you can install the serverless. Also you've got, you got VMware migrate to the serverless services. Yes. You can do it right now, right? No, like you really don't have to install anything and you can still, recognize the servers and they understand the configuration and still move it, right? Correct. What I was saying is, I have to set up that environment. VMware environment because we did it for a POC. We don't have the actual VMware setup. Oh, that's why I'm saying. Because we, being a consulting team, we don't have all these environments ready. As far as the POC requirement, we build that environment, showcase the customer how it will work, what will be the steps over here. Then actual setup is on the customer side. Got it? Got. If you look at the VMware migration, like China rightly said, you have agent list migration, agent list replication, and you have agent-based replication. Now, this is very, very crucial. What I had done when I was working a year ago, I was working on an agent-based replication. Once you install this agent on those respective VMs, it simply puts a check mark on that saying that these are the machines which are eligible to be migrated. And in the migration process, it will show up as a separate set of resources there. There are certain restrictions that you need to take care while you're doing migration in terms of how many disks they have. What is the kind of operating systems that you have right now? Is it Windows, Linux OS, right? Check for those members. And these are certain things that we will check for. If you look at the steps over here in terms of agent list versus agent-based communications, agent-based migration, right? Here, if you look at your agent-based migrations here, we need to migrate your appliances, right? In terms of agent-based it is. You don't have to set up a lightweight appliance. This appliance basically is like a separate server. Here what we're looking at. If you look at the first point over here, in terms of number of settings that we are doing on the server and the VM that will be still there. The only change over here that you see is you have a lightweight appliance which is being installed for agent list. As far as agent based is concerned, I'm not sure if you'll have worked with something called as MAS agent, Microsoft Azure Recovery Services agent. It's like an agent which has to be installed on every machine. While I was working on resources, I had installed this service called as Mobility Service. With Mobility Service, what advantage you get is, like I said earlier, it will identify which machines are planned for migration. Whereas, once it comes to appliance, you don't have to install Mobility Service. Once you install this appliance, what you are saying is, we have identified the machines manually and will be whichever machines we select, those machines needs to be migrated. In terms of replication settings, right, all those steps are as it is. The only aspect over here, or the only change which I see, is whether you want to use Mobility Service or you want to use a lightweight appliance. These are the two primary aspects that will change over here. If you look at the next step over here, set up appliance on VMware, this part is actually done by your Mobility Service. When you install Mobility Service there itself, you specify the entire configuration saying that this is the configuration within my on-premises environment. These are the machines which I want to move on to Azure, right? Those decisions you would have already done over here in Mobility Service. What is the storage account which I have on the other side? All those details you have to mention there. If you look at your VMware migration, this is what Microsoft has been pushing very extensively. The reason being, once people have the reason being, lot of people who are on VMware, the next obvious migration option for them has been AWS. Right. Even keeping that kind of perspective in mind, Microsoft always wanted to showcase people that no, there is no problem as far as VMware is concerned, like how hypervisor can be moved easily. Even VMware solutions or VMware machines can be moved. There is no issues over there. If you look at hypervisor, as far as hypervisor, one of the best options that we have is going for migration with whether you are looking at hypervisor or system center for that matter. In both these scenarios, the migration option will be using your MAS agent. You can have agentless as well, or you can have host-based migration. If you are using something like System Center Virtual Machine Manager, again, please don't get me wrong. It is not a compulsion. If it is there, we can make use of it. It's not a compulsion that everybody should have System Center. Because it's not a cheap solution as well. It's a very expensive product. But there are a lot of people, and if I put it in that way, lot of organizations which have data center and a fairly complex data center. The easiest way for managing those things would be using System Center. Right. I hope this makes sense for everyone in terms of why VMware. Why much focus on VMware versus hypervisor? Because what Microsoft is saying is, by covering these two options, VMware and hypervisor, we are able to address more than 70 60 to 70% of the market where these virtual machines are existing. 30% to 40% will still be there. There will be another ways of catering to them. If you look at your bare metal servers, yes, bare metal or other mechanisms of other products. Because once you look at virtualization, there would be many other products. How IBM may have there. How VMware and hypervisor, how are they sustaining the business? Because like everybody is moving away, right? Correct. I'm not sure about VMware for Microsoft. I can tell you Microsoft has stopped any further production on System Center. They have come up with a new solution called as Azure Stack. As far as Azure Stack is concerned, Azure Stack will help you with bare minimum solution within your on-premises environment, where people have still stuck to on-premises Active Directory or ERP or some CRM solution on-premises. For that bare minimum resources, whatever they have 30% or 20% on-premises, how to survive with that and make sure also you have integration with Azure Cloud. That is what is Azure Stack. VMware, I'm not sure about if they have any similar kind of solution. What I have again, I have heard about it. I don't have perfect news on this, that this entire Google Cloud that you see, which has come up, the underlying environment, is taken care by VMware. The principles of marketing and all those things is taken care by Google, but the underlying infrastructure which is being built is using VMware. VMware is safe because, see, not just VMware. And even if you look at somebody like Rackspace or many companies which have been into hardware business or who has been not say hardware, sorry, wrong on there, data center management business, the only way for them to survive is to tie up or align with some cloud provider. There is no other option. You deploy your complete team for managing a data center. Just to quote an example, in India, if you see, the entire Microsoft data center is managed by TCS. All TCS employees who are data center specialists, all of them are now working for Microsoft. That's what has happened for because I know my specialty area, right? Whoever has to survive further, even cloud providers, if they have to grow, they will have to set up data centers every now and then, right at every place, and they will need data center administrators. If people with that kind of skills have moved there. If you look at agent-based migration, some of the primary things which will be required, and this is again for a VMware environment where you require configuration, server, process server, and mobility service E. Now these are two things which was missing in the list, which was being shown over here, right? That's why I said this configuration will be already done. Who does that configuration? The configuration is done by these two members, configuration server and your process server. Configuration server will actually let you know how many VMs are already existing, how many VMs you can create, what are the IP addresses which are already being used within the virtual network on the Azure environment. How do you create a VM IPs or check for the IPs that they don't overlap? All these things will be taken care by the configuration server, which will help you for centralized management, how much of migration is being done, how much of it is being pending. All that status you will see in configuration server. In terms of process server, as the name suggests, this is something which is happening or taking care behind the scene while the data transfer is happening. In terms of mobility service, this is basically an agent which is on these machines. What you have to do is you have to identify the machines, like I said earlier, phase 1, which machines you are migrating. Once you have identified that, install mobility service on that, and once you have configured it, then you start doing the migration. Before you install mobility service, you have to install the latest patches, OS patches, otherwise it will not consider it. Some of these things has to be done before the installation of mobility service. Here, if you see the options for communication, you can use HTTP, HTTPS, which has been there for very, very long. The new thing that has emerged is Express Route. With Express Route, such kind of migrations have become much, much faster. Earlier, this option was not there. Earlier, when I say I am telling you around 1.5 years or 2 years ago, this Express Route option was not there. This has been newly added, and by this Microsoft has reduced the cost of Express Route, and adoption of Express Route has increased pretty extensively, opposite the law of the world, since its productivity, of course. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.